Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Nation's Pastime in the nation's capital. I'm your host, Andrew, here with host Robbie Cruz. And tonight we have our second part of our rivalry series here. And tonight's topic, Phillies versus Nationals. Welcome to the booth here, guest J.A. J.A., thanks for joining us tonight, man.
Thank you for having me on. This is an honor.
Absolutely. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to Robbie, who's going to be emceeing this tonight. And let's kick off an excellent debate. Robbie?
Thank you, Andrew, for another great introduction. Now, this was a rather difficult topic to come up with because there are so many different things that you could go into. However, we are going to start off tonight's debate with Andrew starting us off. Now, Andrew, I must ask, which team will Bryce Harper win more MVPs with, the Washington Nationals or the Philadelphia Phillies?
Wow, okay, we're starting right off the bat here with a Bryce Harper question. I like it. Well, I'm going to go ahead and say, looking at the math aspect of it, that 13-year gives him a little more opportunity to win MVPs here. But I'm guessing by that question, you are implying that Bryce Harper might not even win a single MVP with the Philadelphia Phillies. Is that correct?
That is correct. I don't think he's winning an MVP with the Phillies, but I'm not the one debating tonight, so you're looking at the wrong guy, man.
All right, well, here's what I got to say about Bryce Harper. Bryce Harper has played his entire career, as we know, in Nationals Park, an absolutely terrible hitter's ballpark, and still managed to hit 40 home runs and win that MVP that year. So I'm just going to say that him playing 13 of his next years in Citizens Bank Park, one of the most hitter-friendly ballparks in America, in the Major League Baseball, that he will without a doubt not only lead the league in home runs multiple years, but I'm going to say he's going to win at least 2 MVP years here. And let me take that one step further just to get under Jay's skin here a little bit. He'll go into the Hall of Fame as a Philadelphia Philly.
You know what? I mean, I think the two MVP thing, I think that's pretty reasonable, but he's going to strike out 200 times every single season. His strikeout rate is really high. And he's only going to hit 270 every single year.
249.
He hit
you and 249, I swear.
Dude,
numbers don't lie.
Dude, Hall of Fame. He's still young, so he's still got 13, 15 years left in his career.
13.
Do you think he's going to retire in Philly?
I'd like to think so, considering the fact that he has a full no-trade clause and he has the no opt-outs. And he said multiple times he wants to just park himself in one city and build a fan base there, build a brand there, and an identity.
Honestly, to build a family in Philadelphia is really, really very questionable.
Here we go. Philadelphia.
I've been to Philadelphia myself, and whenever I walk in that city, I just feel, oh my God, this is
so
really?
Dirty.
Okay,
so let me just ask something here. What exactly separates that from Washington, D.C. here?
Dude, D.C. is the nation's capital.
Really?
And it's the center. It's like the nation's pastime.
Okay.
Baseball in the nation's capital is so amazing for the sport because it's the center of baseball.
Okay, yes, and that's great that there is a baseball town or a baseball team here in the nation's capital. But I gotta say, I don't think historically Washington, D.C. is a baseball town. Compared to Philadelphia, we're looking at a team that's been around in that city since 1883. Talk about history there. We've had numerous numbers of great players to be there, a great, rich history there, deep, passionate fan base about baseball. I just don't think Washington, D.C. has that same feel when it comes to baseball.
Let's also mention that the Philadelphia Phillies are the most losing franchise in all of sports history.
Very true.
And
Thank you, Robbie, for pointing that out.
That's really funny. And I also want to point out again that we have been around since 1883.
And so have the Yankees, and yet you choose to ignore how many times the Yankees have lost.
We're not talking about the Yankees.
We're going to bring in the Yankees this game? Yeah, man. All right. No, that's fair. And look, we have had a lot of losing time, but if there's one thing I will say to that, it's at least we've won a playoff series.
Okay. Now that wasn't part of the question here.
I'm just saying, man. Look, we may have the most losses, but we got a couple playoff series wins at least.
At least we made the playoffs.
All right, and that will lead into our next question.
Okay.
Now, which outfielder would you rather have for the next 10 years? Juan Soto or Bryce Harper?
Juan Soto.
All right, you want to take the lead on this one?
You
want me to go?
Is that a question for you?
No, I think it's a question for both of us.
Jay, you want to start this one off?
Yes.
Yeah, go for it, man.
Juan Soto is, 20? He was drafted at 19. He's only 20. And last season, he had one of the best rookie seasons ever since Ken Griffey. He 22 homers?
Yeah, I think
in less than 120 games?
Yet he didn't win Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, I know. I feel like I think that was a steal with Ronald Acuna Jr.?
I don't know. Ronald Acuna's pretty good.
Ronald Acuna Jr. is a great player.
Pretty
but
good, pretty good.
let's talk about Juan Soto right now. I mean, he's really young, and he's really professional for his age. He's only 20, and he's already putting up rookie. He should have been the rookie of the year, I think. But he's already putting up MVP-like numbers. I mean, if he plays for 162 games, or at least 150, he could be an MVP within the next 3 years.
All right, well, here's the thing with Juan Soto. I will give you the fact that he is an exceptional ball player for his age. The man has an eye like I've never seen before at the plate. It's very hard to pitch to him. But I got to go Bryce Harper on this one, and for the sole fact of something that you actually mentioned, the fact that Juan Soto is 20 years old. The guy's been in the league for one full season plus a little more, and yes, he's been great so far, but how many players can we look at over history who have exploded over their first couple months or years once reaching the major leagues and just fizzled out and been nothing? I'm not saying that's going to happen with Juan Soto, because I think he's a very talented ball player. But I gotta say, if I'm picking between the two, I'd rather have the guy who is now entering his prime, where the guy can put up the kind of numbers that define his career, and a guy who's proven as well, who already has an MVP under his belt, who already has multiple Silver Sluggers, All-Star Game selections under his belt. I gotta take the guy who's proven here, just because, mainly because of the young age of Juan Soto.
Yeah, but when he was at the Nationals, they didn't win.
No, they didn't.
And I think Juan Soto is the kind of player that can win you baseball games and win you playoff games.
Really?
Yeah, I mean...
So how many...
Has that happened yet?
Yeah, how many playoff games did he win you last year exactly?
Okay. But I'm talking about the future.
Okay, the future.
I mean, this guy. If we pay him, we'll have. I think he should retire.
Yeah,
national.
that's the other thing I think we should discuss. Will exactly Juan Soto be looking? Will he be in a Nationals uniform this entire life? Because looking at the Nationals' track record, doesn't seem like they like paying their superstar outfielders, do they?
How about Jason Worth?
Okay, Jason Worth
was a freaking bust.
Yeah. Okay. Well, he was also.
They paid him.
Also, I don't know if I'd consider Jason Worth a superstar outfielder.
He was paid like one.
He was paid like one, and when I saw the contract, I was not that sad that he left Philly because that contract was abysmal. But hey, look, Jason Worth, and
won you
again,
a World Series though.
He did. He was a good part of that. He was actually a Rule 5 pick, I believe. Very interesting thing to note there. But Jason Worth, look, when he signed that deal with the Nationals, not that upset. Of course, we booed him when he came back and everything, but he really did start kind of this new era of Nationals baseball. I mean, if you look at the Washington Nationals before Jason Worth got there, I'm not gonna lie, there wasn't a single reason to watch that team. There wasn't. What were you gonna watch? I mean,
Ryan Zimmerman.
Ryan Zimmerman. Ryan Zimmerman. That's it. Levon Hernandez. What else?
Oh God.
But no. And I think it's important that they signed him because that showed that they were finally done the whole losing aspect, done rebuilding. That was the same year that they drafted Strasburg. The next year they went on to draft Harper.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important what he did for them, but I wouldn't consider him a superstar outfielder. But no, just going back to my point about Soto, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like they're willing to shell out that money unless the Nationals do something, which is what I would do if I was the Lerners. I would go ahead and try and lock up Soto on a deal like Acuna has right now.
Yeah.
Then again, though, if you're Juan Soto, do you really want to accept that? Because I feel like Juan Soto could get some massive bucks.
To answer that question, I think when and if the Nationals re-sign Anthony Rendon, I think it'll want him to stay.
Okay.
Because if Rendon walks, Soto's like our only option.
I would agree with that.
Right. So he's gonna be it's gonna be me on the Nationals, or I could go somewhere else and win.
Correct.
So I think if Rendon stays, I think Soto is the staple.
All right. So you think Rendon is the key there to Juan Soto being a National in the future? All right.
So John Anthony, why do you think that Juan Soto is better to build around than Bryce Harper as of now? Because I think we all know that Mr. Snaith here to my right clearly disagrees with that statement.
Well, let's see. I mean, he gets on base. He hits home runs. He doesn't strike out as much. I mean, he only struck out 99 times in 116 games? And let's see, Bryce Harper last year, he struck out 169 times in 159 games. And so, he strikes out pretty much every game. And Juan Soto gets on base, doesn't strike out, hits homers. I mean, he drives in runs. I mean, he's a complete baseball player. I mean, this is why I want to build around him, for the rest of his career.
But what evidence do we have, though, that that's going to continue over a long period of time? Like you said, the man's 21. How long until pitchers start to figure him out or anything like that? I mean, we are only a year into his career, maybe not even. I think he was called up, in May last year?
I think in June.
So do we have any hope that he's going to continue being that type of player?
I would certainly hope so.
Okay, that's fair enough. So you mentioned the fact that he's had some ridiculous stats over his first stretch here in baseball from 2018 to now in 2019. I just want to quickly call into mind a certain player that illustrates my point about Juan Soto. And his name, if you remember him, is Jeff Francoeur. Jeff Francoeur, through his first seasons, hit, in 2005, 14 home runs, 45 RBI with a 300 batting average in only, I believe, 70 games. The next 2 years, he went on to play all 162 games. In 2006, hitting 260 with 29 homers, 103 RBIs, and then 19 home runs, 105 RBIs, while batting 293 in 2007. After that season, he hasn't even barely eclipsed that 20 home run mark once. He never again eclipsed the 100 RBI mark, and he never again batted anywhere close to that 300 mark. So, looking at a guy like Jeff Francoeur, who I think was kind of similar when it comes to this aspect of Juan Soto, who came up very young, who came up and seemed to be very promising.
But did Jeff Francoeur have the reputation that Juan Soto had when he came into the league?
Does reputation really matter though when we're looking forward? I mean, he's in the big leagues now. The reputation doesn't really matter.
Well, that's true. But before Juan Soto even came into the league, he was one of the top prospects in the league. Everybody was talking about him. Was anybody looking at Jeff Francoeur?
People were looking at Jeff Francoeur. The guy came up when he was 21. That's still relatively young.
Well, Bryce Harper came up when he was Juan Soto, came up when he was 19.
Bryce Harper also came up when he was 19.
I understand that, but we're talking about Juan Soto here.
I hate to interrupt this debate, but if we're going to talk about reputation, let's talk about the reputation that Bryce Harper had when he first came up. When Bryce Harper first came up to the major leagues, my gosh, that guy had the puffy hair. He was cocky. He came up and was everything like that. Jeff Francoeur was not. That's something you guys should take into account. That's just my opinion.
Who the heck knows who Jeff Francoeur is besides
Oh, come on. Jeff Francoeur was a legend, man. That dude had a rocket out in right field. No, okay, that's fair. But no, you mentioned the once again you mentioned what's the word I'm looking for? The reputation of Bryce Harper compared to Juan Soto and everything. I think they're very similar players. I think it's interesting that they're both coming up at such a young age and both with the Nationals and both exploded early in their careers into great players. But honestly, I'm still just going with Bryce Harper here, just to go back to the main debate, because I just feel like if I'm taking a guy for the next 10 years, I want a guy who's already done a lot, who's already proven, and a guy who's going to continue to put up those numbers over the next 10 years, and a guy who's entering his prime. I mean, Juan Soto, during the next 10 years, that'll get him into his prime as well, of course, but we have a very, very small sample size, as I keep saying, with Juan Soto. So I'm still going with Bryce Harper here, and of course with absolutely no bias whatsoever. But
all right, good answers for the both of you. And now that's going to lead into our next topic of debate before we go on commercial break, and that is, as of last year, which ace was better, Max Scherzer or Aaron Nola?
Oh, okay. I'm going to go ahead and say right now that Aaron Nola should have won the Cy Young last year if Jacob deGrom didn't exist. Jacob deGrom was the Cy Young Award winner, of course. Yes.
His team sucked.
Yes, of course they did. But look, the historic ERA, he deserved to win it. So let's just talk about second place right here. Who should have been the second place Cy Young? Because it was Max Scherzer, but I'm going to make my case for why it was Aaron Nola right now. And look, the case is very simple. Oh, Robbie's over here laughing. No, this is a serious argument. I'm not just saying this because I'm a Phillies fan. I think 100% Aaron Nola should have came in second place last year, and here's why. Aaron Nola last year, according to ESPN.com, was worth 10 wins. He had a 10.6 WAR, and that was only behind Mookie Betts. And at one point during the season, he was actually ahead Mookie Betts. The only reason he dipped below is because he struggled a little bit at the end once we were out of the playoffs. But a 10-win season for Aaron Nola. Now, this is significant because the Phillies last year, of course, for anyone who is a Phillies fan listening or is a fan of the NL East, remembers that the Phillies were in competition for that NL division all the way up until they collapsed in September. And
did Aaron Nola strike out 300?
No. Here's the thing,
Did he have 18 wins?
Here's the thing, though. He was a 10-win player. You subtract 10 wins from that Phillies team, and they are now 70-82, nowhere near a Phillies playoff race. And the fact that he was on that team being worth 10 wins, it was literally the fact that he was the only reason that we were even in a playoff race. The defense could not do anything. The offense, everyone forgot how to hit in the middle of August. No one was doing anything, and the only reason we were in that race was because of Aaron Nola. And I think Aaron Nola was a much more valuable pitcher than a guy like Max Scherzer, who, let's be honest here, yeah, he had another great season, but was not worth as much to his team as Aaron Nola was worth to the Phillies.
All right. Well, I mean, like I said before, like, just look at these. I mean, he in only 220.2 innings, he had struck out 300 batters. That's historic right there. I mean, let's see. What else? I mean, let's see. WHIP 0.911. These are just historic stats. I mean, he was a all-star starter in Nationals Park.
Wow, I wonder how that happened.
I mean, why wasn't Aaron Nola the starter?
Aaron Nola wasn't the starter because you were playing in Washington. Are we going to have the 2026 All-Star game and let Patrick Corbin start? Like, it's not going to happen.
Do you think Aaron Nola's going to keep this up until 2026?
I'm not saying Aaron Nola's going to keep it up until 2026, but I'm just saying if you have an ace on your team who's clearly one of the best pitchers in baseball, they're going to let him start the game. It's just like in 2016 when Will Myers started batting cleanup at DH for the NL. Should Will Myers have been in that starting lineup? No, he should not have been. But they were playing in San Diego, and let's be honest, in 2016 the Padres didn't have a whole lot of talent there, so why not put your one guy out there?
True.
But no, yes, I think without a doubt, Aaron Nola, much more valuable player. And also, just want to point out, lower ERA, and actually, I believe, a better WHIP as well. What was his WHIP? What was Max Scherzer's WHIP?
Scherzer's WHIP was 0.911.
Okay, never mind. We're not going to talk about that then. But still.
Scherzer had the best WHIP in the National League last year, folks, just so you know.
He did, but I didn't realize we were using just WHIP to evaluate a player here.
Strikeouts per 9 innings, 12.2. Strikeouts to walk ratio.
Quick question, Andrew.
What's that?
I know I'm not a part of this debate,
No.
but who had more wins? Who had more strikeouts? Who had the lower WHIP?
Okay.
Okay, if you put everything together, Max Scherzer is clearly the more put-together pitcher than Aaron Nola was last year. Aaron Nola came up out of nowhere, folks. He came up out of nowhere,
That is
okay?
not true. That is not true.
Yes. The year before that, he had an ERA over 4.
Yes, and the year before that, he was a considerably good pitcher. He had an ERA around the 3s, and everyone thought he was going to be good, but he just had struggled with those injuries.
So you're telling me that injuries were the reason why his ERA for his career was over 4 before last year?
We're not talking about the career, though. We're talking about last year and the Cy Young Award race.
Why did Max Scherzer finish ahead of Aaron Nola again? Because he was better last year.
No, I'll tell you exactly why. Because the people who run the voting for this are complete morons. First of all, and let's remember here. These are the same people that let Rick Porcello win the Cy Young Award over Justin Verlander when he had an ERA over 3, just because he had 20+ wins. And let me bring that back to another point you just said here, Robbie. I know it's not a debate with you, but I just want to point this out real quick. You just asked me who had more wins. Are wins really relevant when the man who won the Cy Young went 10-9? I don't think the wins have anything to do and are not relevant. Even look at a guy like Felix Hernandez back in 2010. The man had a losing record and he won the Cy Young. Wins, not a good way to evaluate pitching.
Well, I disagree because wins are what carries you to the playoffs, and that's why when I'm building a team, I want a guy who's going to go out there and win. Aaron Nola simply does not have that clutch gene that Max Scherzer had last year. Aaron Nola was not as good as Max Scherzer last year. You know it, and I know it. The strikeouts prove it. The hits prove it. The whip proves it. And the ERA. Okay, ERA is one of the most overrated stats in all of baseball. Aaron Nola should not have let that many base runners get on base. Max Scherzer simply did not allow base runners to get on base, while Aaron Nola did. That's why Max Scherzer is better, because he doesn't allow base runners to get on base. Now, you keep mentioning errors. We get it, Andrew. The Phillies made a lot of errors last year. However, those errors aren't being committed if Aaron Nola is striking those guys out. And those errors aren't being committed if Aaron Nola is not allowing base runners.
Dude, also, Max Scherzer has won the Cy Young 3 times in the last 5 years.
But
that's consistent dominance.
But here's the thing, Jay. We are focusing on last year solely.
Okay.
Yeah, but okay.
But this...
First of all, what did you just said about the defense? And he should just be striking guys out. Are you kidding me? You want him to strike out 27 people every game? Like, come on, man. You need a defense behind you.
Well, that's
and
the reason why we pay him.
But the fact that he was able to have as low as an ERA as he did with that terrible defense behind him shows how even more of a great pitcher he was.
And who threw more innings? Who gave up less hits?
Okay, let me ask you a question in response to that. Who won their duel when they faced off the 2 times? Aaron Nola won both times. Also, Odubel Herrera was the reason we won both times.
We're not talking about Odubel Herrera. We're talking
I'm
about
just
Aaron
saying,
Nola and
Odubel
Max
Herrera
Scherzer.
does own Max Scherzer. Just putting that out there. But who won both their duels? Aaron Nola won both of them.
And who got second place in the Cy Young? That's right. It was Max Scherzer because Scherzer is the better pitcher of the two. It's not even close. Last year proved it too.
What's Aaron Nola's ERA right now?
I don't think we're talking about 2019, and I don't think Max Scherzer's has a hot start either. So
Okay,
also
it's better than Nola.
Andrew, remember you kept talking about how Bryce Harper is going to better with age? Shouldn't Aaron Nola be bettering with age? Because stats right now prove that he has not gotten better with age. That's just my opinion. That's what the stats say. It's what everybody says. It's common sense.
there's so many holes with that argument. I don't even know where to start.
Can you tell me what they are?
Sure, let's start with number 1, not getting better with age. Robbie, we are 3 weeks into the 2019 season. If you're evaluating how he's going to perform the entire season based on 4 starts, that's just asinine.
You sound like a Red Sox fan right now.
Oh, really? Okay. Maybe we should get James Higgins back in here then. But that's my first point. Number 2, what do you mean he's not getting better with age? He just had his best season at age 26 last year when he pitched.
And how?
We are 4 weeks into the season. Not even he's had 4 starts. You can't evaluate him on the entire season. Are we going to evaluate Chris Sale based on 4 starts?
Actually, a few weeks ago on this podcast, you said that you were worried about Chris Sale. Did you not say that?
Of course I'm worried about Chris Sale, and I'm worried about Aaron Nola, but you can't evaluate a guy's entire season based on the first 4 starts he had. It's just, you can't do that. Baseball's 162 games. Aaron Nola is going to start 30-plus games this year. He could go out there and pitch a shutout for the next 30 of them, and then no one would even remember this.
Scherzer, because he's 1-3 with a 4.45, which is respectable for most pitchers.
And I'm sorry, I don't think Aaron Nola has lost to Zach Eflin yet either, so... I'm just saying.
Max Scherzer is the better pitcher. He was better last year. It's why he finished second place in the Cy Young versus Aaron Nola.
Hitters hit. People are going to hit the ball. But, Max Scherzer obviously is the better pitcher because it's look at his history. He's consistently been in the top 3 or even number 1 in Cy Young.
Once again, we are focusing on last year solely. However, I'm still going to defend. I'm still defending JA on this one. Max Scherzer was better last year.
Was higher than Nola on the Cy Young.
Okay, well, I want to bring it back real quick before we go to a commercial break here because I know we got to do that. But the fact that you made about wins and how you want a guy, and this is to Robbie Munley, you want a guy who wins games out there because that's what gets you to the playoffs. So if you think wins are the way to go here, let me just ask you this. Do you know that, or let me ask you this rhetorical question here. How about that? What happens when a closer blows the game in the top of the 9th and then the team walks off in the bottom of the 9th? What happens? What does that closer receive?
The closer gets the loss.
The closer does not get the loss. If the closer blows the game in the top of the 9th...
Are there runners on base when he comes in?
No. Listen to the
I
scenario.
I know where he's coming from.
Yes, the closer blows the game in the top of the 9th. Then, in the bottom of the 9th, his home team walks off. What does that closer receive? Go ahead, tell me.
He receives a win.
He receives the win. So you're going to sit here and tell me that wins are a valid way to decide between these two pitchers when that's the kind of thing that wins does.
These are starters. Wins for relievers don't mean anything.
Okay, but
these are starters who are paid to win games and strike people out. Scherzer obviously gets more wins than Aaron Nola.
Okay, well then let's take a look at this from Max Scherzer then. Last season on August 24th, I believe. I don't remember the exact date. I do know it was the day that we moved into CUA here, but Aaron Nola faced Max Scherzer in a duel in Nationals Park, and Max Scherzer pitched 8 wonderful innings and only allowed 2 runs and got the loss. You're going to tell me a start like that is bad just because he didn't win?
No,
Wins are not able to accurately depict how good a pitcher is. The only reason he lost that game, even though he struck out 13 Phillies, no one could touch him. The only reason he lost that game and didn't receive a win was because he missed 1 pitch to Odubel Herrera, and Odubel Herrera put it in the 3rd deck. That was the only reason he lost. So if you're going to sit here and tell me that wins are a way to evaluate pitching, and that's the best way to do it above ERA, that's just silly. You can't do that.
What about all the other stats that I brought up that prove that Max Scherzer was better than Aaron Nola? The hits, the innings pitched, the strikeouts, all that stuff. You're telling me that's not important, Andrew? Are you kidding me?
This is why he's paid $200 million to strike people out.
I'm standing by my original argument that Aaron Nola was a more valuable player to his team because I don't see Max Scherzer with a 10 WAR. And also, again, I'm going to reiterate it, the Phillies are not even chatting about the playoffs last year if Aaron Nola is not on that team. He single-handedly put them in the playoffs.
And you think that the Nationals would have been in the postseason race if Max Scherzer weren't there?
They would have been?
When
I don't even think they were. The only reason they finished.
I'm saying if you subtract Max Scherzer, would the Nationals be in postseason contention? Because they would not even be close.
No, but if you subtract Max Scherzer, you're looking at a significantly better team than if you subtract Aaron Nola from the Phillies. The Nationals minus Max Scherzer still have the means to win 70 to 80 games. The Phillies without Aaron Nola last year are not even winning probably 70 games. That lineup was abysmal. So I'm just going to sit here and say that right there. That's my argument for Aaron Nola.
WAR is also an overrated stat.
WAR is an overrated stat. Is everything an overrated stat that you disagree with then?
No, I don't believe. There are some stats I believe are very valuable.
Okay. So how about defensive WAR? Do you like that?
I think it's pretty important. Yeah, I'm not going to lie.
How do people even come up with these algorithms for these things?
Bill James, man. Bill James. It's good stuff.
It's honestly a disgrace that somebody next to me would go out there and say that Aaron Nola was better than Max Scherzer last year. That's abysmal. That's ridiculous.
If you had to choose, and you were in the playoffs in Game 7, and you had Aaron Nola and Max Scherzer, who would you put on the mound?
Max Scherzer every day of the week.
Hold on. No, this question is who would you choose in 2018? Because
I'm still choosing Max Scherzer.
Okay, in 2018, I'm choosing Aaron Nola.
Oh my God.
Guy had a lower ERA. The guy worked with a terrible defense, and he was still able to put up a ridiculous season. Now, look, I'm going to give it to you. Overall, yes, I'm taking Max Scherzer if it's based on the entire career. No crap. Aaron Nola has been in the league for 3 years. Max Scherzer has been pitching for more than 10, and he's going to go in the Hall of Fame as one of the greatest pitchers of all time. But based on 2018, I would rather have Aaron Nola start that wild card game if that's what we're talking about.
Stats, the strikeouts, the innings pitched, the amount of hits giving up. They don't lie. Max Scherzer has the advantage over Aaron Nola in all of these stats. I'm pretty sure he has less walks than Aaron Nola does, too. It's not even close.
Let's see, walks.
The point that I'm getting to is that Max Scherzer was more complete last year. More innings pitched. More innings pitched and less hits. Are you kidding me? Lower opponent's batting average. Less walks than Aaron Nola. It's ridiculous. This isn't even an argument. I don't even know. Oh, my gosh.
In 220 innings, he only walked 51 batters. Let's see. And, well.
58, yeah, come on.
58.
Yeah, great.
Nola walked 58. But the thing is, Max Scherzer threw so many more innings than Aaron Nola did last year, so Nola should have less walks because Scherzer threw more innings.
All right, look. We know my argument. I'm sticking for the WAR argument, the fact that he was a more valuable player and that he should have won the Cy Young based on that. But look, I get it. Max Scherzer had a very good year. Better pitcher overall.
300 strikeouts.
Yes.
And WAR is a ridiculous stat to judge somebody. It's ridiculous that somebody wouldn't even think of that.
Scherzer was an 8.7.
Joker.
All right, well, on that note, I think we're going to take a quick commercial break here on WCUA. We'll be right back at you after the break with some more debate and conversation here. Stay tuned for Nation's Pastime in the Nation's Capital right after this commercial. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Nation's Pastime in the Nation's Capital. That was Night Running by Cage the Elephant and Beck, actually featured on the soundtrack of MLB 19, the show that actually just released last month. So, moving on, we're going to continue with our rivalry series here, Nationals versus Phillies, and once again, I'm going to turn it over to Robbie for the next question.
Thank you, Mr. Snaith. Now, we're going to start Jay with this one because Snaith has started the past few questions. Now, this is a question that is going to be a little bit tricky, but based on last year's performance and so far this year, would you rather have a healthy Trey Turner or Gene Segura as your leadoff hitter?
I like this. Go ahead, Jay.
This is a great question. I mean, healthy Trey Turner. I mean, he gets, honestly, if he plays 162 games or even 150, he could steal 50 or 60 bases. I mean, like if he leads off, he could literally just bunt for a base hit whenever he wants to. Let's see. I mean, like how many? What were? I've never really watched Gene Segura that much, but like, I mean, does Gene Segura steal as many bases as
he doesn't? He doesn't steal as many. He steals a couple, but his big draw is. Well, you know, I'll wait till you're done your full case because I'll get into it. Then.
I mean, let's see. Wow, last year he played all 162 games and he stole 43 bases. I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, he also batted .271. I mean, pretty good leadoff hitter. He gets on base. He steals bases. I mean, honestly, I haven't watched Gene Segura too much, so I can't really, this isn't really a great question for me. But, I mean, Trey Turner, I mean, I'm maybe a little bit biased, but, I mean, Give me your argument for Gene Segura.
Okay, so here it is with Segura. Obviously, not as fast and not as young is going to be his two main drawbacks there. Of course, Trey Turner is, without a doubt, one of the fastest players in baseball, stealing probably 40 bases a year if he is healthy, as we saw last year when he played 162 games. But my case for Gene Segura, and I got to say real quick, Gene Segura is, without a doubt, probably my favorite Philly right now. And I know that's crazy to say with Bryce Harper on the team. And minus Bryce Harper, I think he is the most important addition to this Phillies team because Gene Segura is a guy who just gets on base, and even when he's not, he's putting the ball in play, and I think that is so valuable. Last year, he only struck out 69 times in 144 games. That is absolutely crazy for today's era of high strikeouts, high home runs, high walks kind of model that people like, Bryce Harper have and other people like Stanton have and stuff like that. I think it's very important to have a guy like him in the middle of that lineup who's going to get 200 hits consistently, who's going to bat 300 consistently, who's not going to strike out, and who's going to put the ball in play. Now, Trey Turner also has a lot of those qualities as well, although he has less hits, I believe. How many did he have last year? I'm actually not sure.
Last year he had 180 hits.
180 hits, and he batted around 3-something?
He batted 271.
271. Okay, so that's the thing, yeah. A little bit lower batting average. The speed will make up for that, of course. We're putting balls in play. You can leg out some more stuff. But I would just rather have a guy like Gene Segura who plays a little bit better defensively shortstop as well, which I think is very important, especially for the Phillies after last year, watching Scott Kingery boot ball after ball. But I think it's, like I said, very important to have a guy who's going to get 200 hits consistently, who puts the ball in play, and who can play a solid defensive shortstop. I think Gene Segura is one of the most underrated players in baseball, and I think that having a guy like him batting 2 between McCutchen and Harper is just immensely more valuable, even if he's a little slower.
Your thoughts on that, Jay?
Well, I mean, those are all great arguments. I mean, is Gene Segura a leadoff hitter?
No, he's batting 2 right now. He bats behind McCutchen.
So this argument is a little bit shifted, but I mean, Trey Turner, I will say he does strike out a considerable amount. He strikes out 100. He struck out 132 times last year. But I mean, he gets on base. His on base percentage is 344. Gene Segura was 341. I mean,
well, it's around the same clip.
Yeah,
there,
but still, I mean,
that's give or take 1 or 2 walks.
Once he gets on base, the next thing he does is steal second base. Like he got 43 stolen bases last year, 46 the year before, 33 the year before that. So I mean, he obviously has a reputation for stealing bases. I mean, I think he's the fastest man in baseball.
Now, I hate to interrupt again, but Andrew, quick question.
Sure.
Do you know why the Seattle Mariners reportedly traded Gene Segura?
We're not going to talk about that because
it was because he was
I don't know the answer to this question.
We're not going to talk about that because that was never confirmed. That was a rumor.
This was confirmed.
It was not confirmed. Okay, Rob, you want to show me your source on that?
Many people inside of baseball.
We heard it here.
Anonymous sources.
Was CNN your source?
CNN was not my source.
Okay, well, that might be real.
But many people believe that the reason why Gene Segura was traded from the Seattle Mariners was because he was an issue in the clubhouse. And now, before you say anything, Andrew, are you telling me that the Arizona Diamondbacks, Milwaukee Brewers, and Los Angeles Angels just traded him coincidentally? I don't think so. If he's gotten traded that many times, to me, there is a very good chance that he is a clubhouse cancer. This guy is... I'm not high on him because I'd rather take Trey Turner as well, simply because he's better in the clubhouse.
Everybody loves him in the clubhouse.
Everybody loves him in that clubhouse.
He's one of the best teammates on the team. Everybody loves him.
That's cool because I just want to point out real quick that Bryce Harper said that one of his most favorite teammates to be around with and hang out with has been Gene Segura so far this year.
It was and JT Realmuto.
Yeah, both of those players are like bad clubhouse players. Nobody likes him in the clubhouse.
Wait, nobody likes Harper. Everyone loves his presence in the clubhouse here in
Did
Philly.
Max Scherzer and Ryan Zimmerman?
I'm not talking
Max
about the
Scherzer-
Nationals.
Max
I'm talking
Scherzer
about
wanted
his
him to
team,
leave.
the Philadelphia Phillies, right now. Not about his team where he never won any playoffs.
Max Scherzer basically initiated the fact that Bryce Harper should leave.
Yeah, and then he pretty much confirmed it in that one article where Ryan Zimmerman said, what was it? He had that crazy quote. Oh, he quoted in saying he didn't think he fit with the new team and everything, and the reporter asked him if he could put that in an article, and he said, write it. So, yes, I think it was no secret that a lot of people didn't like him. But you also got to remember, and I'm shifting this slightly to Bryce Harper here for a second, but just to make a point. Bryce Harper, during those years where he wasn't exactly liked by Max Scherzer, Ryan Zimmerman, and other guys. He was just a kid. The guy came up when he was 19 and 20, and he had a giant ego. The dude had been over ESPN and Sports Illustrated magazine since he was 15 and 16. No kidding, he was going to act a little cocky and act like an a-hole. That was just who he was. That's how anyone is when they're that age, and especially when they're that age and they're becoming the face of a franchise. Bryce Harper is a completely different player in Philadelphia. He's a lot more mature. He's a lot more of a guy who's not like that, big-headed kind of aspect like he used to be over in Washington. And also then, let me just put this back on Segura and say it's the same thing. Segura is 29 years old. He's a lot different from what he used to be. And also, something that, let's go ahead and talk about that rumor, not report, about the Seattle Mariners and why they traded him last year. If you read through that, again, it also says that he was rather upset that this was a team that could not play baseball, a team that would not make the playoffs, and he wants to be on a contender, and I don't blame the guy for being upset that he wasn't on a contender. You had guys last year who were treating it like a joke. I mean, there was no secret that he had altercations with D. Gordon, that he wasn't a fan of he is a good friend with Robinson Cano. I meant to say just D. Gordon there. And I don't blame him. He was pissed at the guys. I mean, they're trying to win some games here, and they're just, getting busted for steroids and stuff like that.
And going back to Bryce Harper, can you correct me if I'm wrong, Andrew, because my memory might be a little bit shook. But
here we go.
Didn't Jonathan Papelbon also have trouble with Bryce Harper? Didn't Jonathan Papelbon basically choke Bryce Harper?
Yeah.
That's how bad it was, because Bryce Harper was a problem in the clubhouse, and now the Phillies are full of him. That's why they're playing 500 baseball within the past 10 games.
Jonathan Papelbon incident was pretty stupid.
Yes. Okay.
It was like one of the last series of the season, and he popped up to like right field.
Bryce Harper didn't run the ball out. Also, let's talk about how many times Bryce Harper's been ejected.
No,
He'll strike out. He will strike out.
Great. He has an ego, because who cares?
Look. Okay, let me just bring up Jonathan Papelbon real quick. That situation, because I remember it clear as day, it was 2015. The Nationals did not make the playoffs that year because that was the year the Mets won the division, correct? Or the Braves won.
It was the Braves.
Braves won the division. Mets won the wild card. No,
the Mets won the
Mets won the division.
It was the year they went to the World Series.
That's what it was.
So,
okay, nevertheless,
that
was the year that the Nationals did not make the playoffs, and Bryce Harper went off and had his MVP year. Bryce Harper in game 161, I believe it was.
I think it was 161.
Pops out to left fielder Peter Borges, and yes, doesn't run it out as much. He goes back to the dugout, and Jonathan Papelbon says, "Why didn't you run them out?" And Bryce Harper says, "Are you bleeping kidding me?" You can see that pretty clearly on the recording. And Papelbon proceeds to choke him. I'm sorry, Robbie, but I don't see how that has anything to do with Bryce Harper. It's Jonathan Papelbon thinking he's better than everyone else. And let me just bring this up real quick about Jonathan Papelbon, because my hate for Jonathan Papelbon is pretty long, okay? Jonathan Papelbon is a guy who sat on his butt for 8 innings of a game, doing whatever the heck he wanted to, and then at the last second, in the 9th inning, just had to warm up and pitch 3 outs. You're going to sit here and tell me that guy has the right to criticize Bryce Harper, a guy who played 150-plus games that year, who was out there every day, running out every ball just because he didn't hustle once? No, that was not a Bryce Harper situation. That was 100% a Jonathan Papelbon situation. I don't want to hear anything else.
And to me, I think that's one of the most ridiculous arguments that somebody could make, because Bryce Harper had many issues that year. He got ejected multiple times. He got ejected many times, and to me, he just wasn't a good teammate. I don't think that you should have built a team around Bryce Harper that year. Kicking dirt at the umpire is something that I don't want on my team. I don't want somebody that's going to get ejected, slam their helmet into the ground, and just start screaming at the umpire. It's so unprofessional, and you don't need that on your team. And why? Okay, now let me ask you this. Why are we shifting the argument from Gene Segura to Bryce Harper?
Because you're the one who said, "Whoa, let's talk about Bryce Harper real quick."
That's no. I was talking about how bad of a teamate Gene Segura was.
Fine.
Then you guys
Let's talk
brought
back
it
to
in.
Gene Segura and the fact that he's had no problems whatsoever since being in Philadelphia, because for the
False.
first time... I'm sorry, what?
False.
What problem has he had in Philadelphia so far in the clubhouse?
None that we know, but
Oh my
I
God.
guarantee there's stuff behind closed doors.
Okay,
hurt.
you can't say... Oh, yeah, he's coming back Saturday. But I'm sorry, false, and then you don't have any thing to back that up. Let me just talk about Gene Segura real quick. For the first time
I have history to back me up.
That's not how that works. For the first time in Gene Segura's career, he's playing for a team that he actually wants to. Let me just go back to December when he was traded from the Mariners to the Phillies. The first thing he did was buy a Phillies hat and post a video on his Instagram story of him dancing, celebrating, all right? This man is happy to be in Philadelphia. For the first time, he's on a team that he wants to be with. Also, let's talk about when Bryce Harper signed. The first thing he did with Bryce Harper, they posted a video on his Instagram story of them dancing in the clubhouse, having a good time. Everyone's out there, feeling good. This guy wants to be here. People love him, especially, and I want to say real quick, with the Phillies, with such a big Dominican presence on their team, a lot of the guys there really love him. And another guy in there who's speaking Spanish in the clubhouse, another guy who is going to be there and understand them, guys like Franco, guys like Hernandez, And I think that's really important as well. He's surrounded by a lot of people who he can have a similar mindset to. And I just don't think those reports, by the way, which originated with our favorite reporter, John Heyman, just to say, are necessarily true. So going back to the main argument, which we have derailed from significantly, Gene Segura, I believe, would be a more valuable player just because of that ability to put balls in play, strike out a lot less, and get on base more.
And how about the stolen bases, the ability to... He's just, anytime Trey Turner comes up to bat, you just got to keep an eye on him because he can. You fear him. You fear him as a hitter. You don't know if he's going to bunt or hit a solid line drive. He has more power than Segura. He's a more complete package than Gene Segura.
He may not hit for as high an average, but he also gets on base a ton. And basically, if he gets on base like a single,
which is something that Snaith always rages about.
When he's in the batter's box, a single is a double for him, and a double is a triple for him.
No, yeah, and I'm not discounting his speed, but I'm just saying, the main point you made about stolen bases. Speed and not speed in general, but when it comes to stolen bases, it's becoming more of a premium in today's game. There's not a lot of guys who can go out there and get paid just because, they steal bases. A lot of the game today is to get on base and then drive them in with a run or drive them with a home run. That's just how baseball is today.
Which is why Trey Turner is a very special player.
He is a very special player, but the fact of the matter is that speed, you also take the decrease in contact, and he does not have more power numbers, by the way. I believe Gene Segura has more home runs than higher slugging, I believe. His OPS
but when on, Trey Turner has more power, in my opinion. That's just my opinion.
How does he have power when he's
10
on?
Homers last
You mean
year,
speed?
And Trey Turner hit 19.
Oh yeah, but I'm not talking about strictly home runs when it comes
I'm talking about home runs.
I'm talking about his OPS. I mean, his OPS was 755 last year.
Yeah, and Trey Turner's was 760.
760. Okay, so they're still similar in that aspect.
And you know what? Trey Turner has the advantage, as he always does, because he's simply a better shortstop, folks. We just need to recognize the greatness. No, he's not a better defensive shortstop. You're right. Oh, fudge, that wasn't even on. Oh.
Yeah.
We need to recognize the greatness of Gene Segura. He's simply I'm Trey Turner. Trey Turner is simply a better shortstop than Gene Segura is. Put it plain and simple. You heard it here, folks.
All right, well, I respectfully disagree, but hey.
All right, this will lead on to our very next question. I will start with Mr. Snaith here again.
All right.
Now, Andrew, which stadium is better, Citizens Bank Park or Nats Park?
Oh, okay. This is gonna be
this is something that both of these guys know about. I believe that they've been to multiple games at their team's respective stadium.
I will say I have never been to Citizens Bank Park.
Okay. That might make this question a little bit harder, but that's
so
right.
Tell me why you... Okay, now, Andrew, we're going to start with you. Tell me why you think Citizens Bank Park is better than Nats Park. And, J.A., you're just defend it.
All right, well, let me just start with the fact that Nats Park is the most cookie-cutter ballpark I've ever been to my entire life. You could literally take Nationals Park, you could take that logo off the ballpark, put any team there, and I wouldn't argue that it was their ballpark. There's no defining features about the ballpark. It has absolutely no character to it whatsoever. It's just not special. It just looks like a normal ballpark that could be literally, like I said, the home to any team. And also I want to point out with the ballpark is that all they had to do is move the stadium about 180 degrees, and the outfield skyline would have been the Washington Monument. And I don't know why the heck they didn't choose to do that. Instead, we have the wonderful financial district and parking garage out there. But no, and then when it comes to Citizens Bank, I just think, of course, this is going to be biased because I've been going to Citizens Bank since I was 4 years old, but I just think it's such a great ballpark, not only because it's such a great hitter's ballpark, and that's led to some wonderful offensive teams throughout the years for the Phillies, but it just has so much character. We have memorable things like the Liberty Bell out there. We have Ashburn Alley, named after one of our greatest outfielders of all time. We have the Wall of Fame out there commemorating our great history as a baseball franchise, something that the Nationals don't have.
A team that has lost more games than any other franchise in sports history, as I reiterate.
a history doesn't have to be winning or losing. It's just the history of a franchise. And I don't think you can argue that the history of the Phillies franchise is without a doubt rich. It's been around since 1883. But no, going back to the argument for the ballparks. And I think, like I said, I just think it's an overall better ballpark. I think it's a better experience. I think you can have a better viewing experience as well at Citizens Bank. I think there's a lot less bad seats at Citizens Bank when it comes to that. And I think that also has to come with the fact that it is a smaller ballpark, which does help it out, of course. But no, my main argument is just going to be it at least has character. And Nationals Park, I could just slap any logo on there and it could be that team's ballpark.
Okay, well, I will agree that the ballpark is a little bland. And again, I've never been to Citizens Bank Park, so my argument is probably going to lose. But like, when you go to Nationals Park, the feeling of being in the nation's capital and being like 1 mile away from the Capitol building, and like, who cares whether or not you can't see the Washington Monument or the Capitol? The point is, you're going to there to see a baseball game.
Okay, but let's look at some other wonderful ballparks and see about the sites they have in their skyline. Rogers Center has the CN Tower in their skyline when the dome is open. We have Busch Stadium. You see the arch out there. The signature things.
Busch Stadium is terrible, by the way.
If you sit in the right spot, you can see the Capitol building and the Washington Monument from your seats.
Okay, but I'm just saying, all you had to do was move that ballpark, and you would have had a much more significant and memorable skyline. And also, I just want to throw this back to another terrible thing about the ballpark, and actually shout out to James Higgins, who was on the show last week, who actually inspired me to think of this point. It is the worst fan experience in baseball. I always hear him say that, and it's so true. It's the only ballpark in baseball that doesn't let you bring a backpack in. I mean,
that's just this year.
Yes, but what is that about? I can't bring a backpack to the game? Like, come on, man. Like, sometimes I want to bring a coat or a poncho to a game, and I have to carry it because there's no backpacks. That's number one. Number two, their handling of the All-Star game was butchered. I heard firsthand from people who tried to go to that red carpet event. It was absolutely mobbed. They didn't let half the people in who were supposed to be there. They just handled it absolutely terribly. I mean, I feel like it's a ballpark that just doesn't care about their fans that much, honestly.
And not only that, they're still selling All-Star game jerseys. That's how poorly their sales went. It was ridiculous.
Well, and not only that, that's not as true because they still sell anything they have left. I mean, if the Phillies had that, they would still be selling their stuff afterwards as well. But no, just in general, like I said, just lacking character, doesn't have a great fan experience, and I just think it's so much more memorable of a time to go to a ballpark and to Citizens Bank Park in Philadelphia.
Alrighty, that's another solid argument. Now, we are going to present one last question before we cut ties with this segment. Now, I'm going to start this one with J.A. because we've been going back and forth. Now, J.A., which city is easier to recruit free agents in? Washington, D.C., the nation's capital, or Andrew, Citizens Bank Park with that insane fan base?
Okay. Go ahead.
Can you, rephrase that question? I don't...
So, if you were a free agent and you had to choose between playing in D.C. for the Washington Nationals or the Philadelphia Phillies, why would you choose the Washington Nationals, Jay, over the Philadelphia Phillies?
I choose Washington, D.C. first because you're playing in the nation's capital, the center of baseball. You are playing for a team that's young, that's we're young, we're very... not only are we a young team player-wise, but just team-wise. We've only been in the league for, 15 years? We are a rising franchise, and we got a lot of young players who, Juan Soto, Victor Robles, Michael A. Taylor, Trey Turner, these...
Anthony Rendon, too.
Anthony Rendon, thank you.
Not if you don't pay him.
Well, that's a different story. But, who wouldn't want to play in D.C.? This is Washington, D.C. versus Philadelphia. This is a washed-up city. I've been there myself.
Washed-up city, where our country originated. Yeah, good stuff. All right. Are you good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm gonna break this argument down into 4 main sections here. Number 1, the most attractive thing in free agency is the same no matter what city it is. And do you know what that is? It's money. Money's the most attractive thing in free agency. and I'm hard-pressed to think of a team that has and also has the willingness to spend as much money as the Philadelphia Phillies in the past couple years.
Oh, be careful saying that. The Washington Nationals payroll is so much higher than the Phillies. Don't go down the payroll
I'm talking
argument.
about willingness
We're in the middle
to
of paying
break
Max
the...
Scherzer and Patrick Corbin.
No, correct.
And,
Yes.
and Steven
Steven
Strasburg.
Correct, and that's...
And we're about to pay Anthony Rendon, hopefully.
Correct, but I'm talking about in the past couple years, there has not been a team more willingness to spend their money. The Nationals spent all their money in the past, in 2014-15. The reason they didn't have as big of a signing this year, like a guy like Bryce Harper, is because
They
signed
signed Patrick Corbin.
Yes, they did sign Patrick Corbin. He
was the best free agent pitcher. They signed him for $140 million.
Yes, they did.
They are willing to spend money right now. The Nationals
If
are.
they were willing to spend money, Bryce Harper would be on that team. Okay, but anyway, number one is the money. Number two, I'm going back to the history here. I'm about to say the title of our show here. The nation's capital has had baseball for a little over 10 years now. It does not exactly have a rich history, and even going back into its history as the Montreal Expos, it's not exactly rich. Like I said multiple times, the franchise has never won a playoff series. They've known nothing but misery and suffering, and they have not had great players in that history. You want to come to a place where you're going to be remembered among some of the greats, like Steve Carlton, Mike Schmidt, Robin Roberts, Richie Ashburn, guys like that. You're going to come to Philadelphia for that reason. Number three, the ballpark. And we just had this discussion in the last segment here. But if I'm a hitter and I want to go to a place that's going to maximize my potential for a career, 100% I'm choosing Citizens Bank over Nationals Park. I think that honestly is a big reason why Bryce Harper was also between the Philadelphia Phillies and the Giants, and why the Giants would have had to outbid the Phillies massively in order for him to choose there, because he wants to play in a place that's going to maximize his potential as a hitter. And finally, speaking of Bryce Harper, my fourth and final point, if I'm a free agent and I want to go to a place, I want to play with Bryce Harper. Let's be honest here. This man, he's not the best player in baseball.
You want to play with Bryce Harper?
I do.
With the biggest reputation.
Hear me out.
Worst reputation in the league.
He is not the best player in baseball, and that's not an argument there. But without a doubt, this man is the face of the sport. ESPN even confirmed that he was the only baseball player on the top 100 most recognizable athletes in the world. The only baseball player. Mike Trout wasn't on that. Christian Yelich wasn't on that. Bryce Harper was on that, because he's not the best, but his ability to build a brand and an identity, and now that he has it in one city, I would love to be a part of that. Go hit behind Bryce Harper, go hit in front of him, whatever it may be, and be a part of multiple years of success and championships, and who knows what else could happen. So those are my four reasons that if I'm a free agent, I'm picking Philadelphia.
Now, when has a big name hitter signed with the Nationals when Bryce Harper was there? There's never been anybody that I can remember.
That's what I'm saying as well. I'm thinking. Oh, you're saying when Bryce Harper was there? Okay,
When
well,
you
also have to remember when Bryce Harper was there, and I said this earlier in the broadcast, he was just a kid. This was still a guy who was coming up and trying to prove himself as a kid. And also, I don't really think the Nationals had a need to sign any big free agents when he was there. Their offense was very potent during the years that Bryce Harper was there, except for maybe last year. There was no need for that. Their need was always pitching, and they always took care of that. They signed Scherzer, they extended Strasburg, and of course they got Corbin now this year that Harper's gone. So I don't really think that's a fair argument to make there, just because I don't think there was ever a need for an explosive offensive signing there when Bryce Harper was a member of the Nationals.
Jay, how do you feel about that?
Honestly, I think the arguments are great, but I mean, like I said before, I mean, I'm also going to the city part of it. I mean, DC. I mean, I've lived here all of my life. I've been to Nationals Park since I was 5 years old, or whenever they came into DC. But like, obviously, I mean,
quick question: did you ever go to RFK as a kid?
I did go
You
to
did.
RFK.
That's pretty
That
cool.
was I mean,
it was a dump, but
it was a dump. But like,
but
I
yeah,
mean,
still pretty cool.
yeah.
Also, one thing to note is the Philadelphia fans. They are absolutely
the Philadelphia
insane.
fans. No offense, are one of the worst. Part of the worst fan base I've ever.
No, you're right.
They are the worst. They are worse than the Dodgers, worse than the Giants, worse than the Yankees, worse than the Blue Jays, worse than everybody else. If you are listening to this and you are a Philadelphia Phillies fan, shame on you.
No, you're right. We're so bad that we travel down to Washington and take over your
throw
ballpark
beer at
during
each
all of
other.
the
And throw
series.
beer at each other and get like 6 of your own fans ejected.
That's called passion, man. I don't see that with
No,
Nationals
it's called
fans.
stupidity.
All I see is the Nationals fans leaving after Bryce Harper gets his first hit back in Nationals Park because they can't stand it.
And you're telling me that Philly fans would not have done the same if they had a superstar free agent leave and then do well against them. They wouldn't have done the same thing. Or if they're losing, they wouldn't leave the game a few minutes early to beat the traffic. I bet you they would.
Not a chance, because Philadelphia is an actual passionate sports city. There's nothing to be passionate out in D.C. right now, except for maybe hockey. But I don't even know who follows
the
hockey.
Nationals fan base is one of the most passionate fan bases you'll ever see.
Really, they're one of the most passionate fan bases I've
Yeah,
ever seen.
you go to Nationals Park, everybody is so nice to each other, and it's like
Nice doesn't equal passion, though.
Okay, but like they always fill up the seats. They always like.
When was the last time they had a sellout?
One thing to note, Jay, however, sorry to cut this off again, not to side towards Snaith on this one, but the Phillies did break the record for the longest consecutive sellout streak in what year was it, 2013?
2012, I think it ended.
Okay, whatever.
But I'm just saying, if we're so bad, and that's fine, we have that reputation of being rowdy and being, passionate is the word I would use. But if we're so bad, I mean, I don't know about you, but I'd want to go to the team that's taking over every other team's ballpark when they go down there. If I'm a player and I can pick the Phillies and I know I'm going to have essentially a home crowd in D.C., I mean, just remember, 2008 to 2012, I would come down to D.C. for almost every series that the Phillies were playing here. It was Citizens Bank Park South. We would just take over the stadium. And I'm just saying, the Philadelphia Phillies, no matter how bad they got during their rebuild years, did not let other teams' fans come in and take over that ballpark. We would put an end to that crap right away.
Alrighty, guys, that ends our second segment of the debate topic. Thank you, Mr. Bueno, for coming. Jay Buono, is that how you pronounce your last name? Buono, Jay Buono. Thank you for coming on our show. We hope to see you around, and thank you all for listening to another episode of Nation's Pastime in the Nation's Capital. I'm your host, Robbie Cruz, alongside my co-host, Andrew Snaith. And once again, thank you to Mr. J.A. Buono for coming on tonight.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It was great.
Yeah, thanks, J.A. And once again, that's going to conclude it. Go ahead and look out for Twitter at NatPastimeCap for tonight's show and any others you missed posted. They're going to be up within the hours following the show or early tomorrow morning. And once again, we'll see you next week, 6 to 7 here on WCUA. Thanks for listening.
Peace out.